All right, now on to the new stuff. So there's a lot of file management that we need to just kind of discuss and make sure we're all on board. We've got a couple new archive options and drive letters that are pathed for you guys. So the first one being X, right? That's really old. Like most anybody who's been here less than 3 years doesn't even really know X exists. That's everything basically prior to 2012, 2014, sometime in there. You may find some archived information. More recent jobs are on the Y drive, right? So this is where you start seeing the new 226815 job numbers. This is where also you see all your SDB and SDG job numbers. So if we scroll down, we're going to see those. All right, so the Y drive is kind of a temporary location where we may still need access to it in an expedient manner, but we don't want it cluttering up the N drive. The next drive I'm going to talk about is the Z drive. This is basically archive Panzera. So this is where everybody is starting to store their resources. So if we go into projects, you'll see San Diego. We don't really have much in here. We have some old HDS scans, and we have some archived firm projects. So obviously the stuff on the Y drive will eventually move here. I just want to make sure that it's truly archived projects before moving it to this archive Panzera location. It is a slower location, lower speed data tiers on speeds. So just kind of keep that in mind. But that's just kind of some general background for you in case you want to look for an old job number and you just need to like look at a quick PDF or open a quick CAD file. You can access those two drive letters. New organizational codes. Who doesn't like them already? Oh, man, that's just me. All right. So we've got a bunch of different organizational codes within this building now, right? And to kind of streamline the ability to find your project folder, we are dropping the first 4 digits of the project, right? The 2268, the 2275, that's getting dropped, and we're just going 18 dash and then the 7-digit job number. All right, so you can start to see that being populated on the N drive. 437 was the first job where we made that decision. So you'll notice once we start 437, you'll start seeing that all the way up to 485. There are some oddballs that got started prior to this out of sequence. So in particular, the 800 series, right? That's still the full path of 226818. So just kind of keep that in mind. But this is where all your new job numbers and projects are being created. All right, 18 dash. This next topic is a big one, and it's highly embedded in NV5 culture in the way that we've done our projects. So typically we'll get a project, it'll start in the survey department, right? We'll have a job number generated for that. Then it will get carried over, let's say, to the civil group. It will have its own job number. Then it will get carried over to the power group, and it will have its own job number. And then it goes into a substation design, right? Because now we have a substation design group. So then it goes there. Then we have an underground group or an overhead job number, right? So we start developing these one project, but we have it spread across 5 or 6 different job numbers. And we're starting to have file conflicts, right? Because all this data is not being carried over from job to job. It's either being copied or started new, costing our client more money. So we want to be sure to kind of safeguard against that. What my recommendation is to keep that first job number that gets created. That's where all your files are going to be stored, and the new project number will just have a shortcut, Windows shortcut, pointing you back to that original job number. All right. So I need your help with that, right? Because when project setups come in, I don't necessarily know the full history of every project that we do here at NV5. It's an extensive list, right? Thousands upon thousands of projects. So if you find yourself working on a project that you know we have a project history of, let me know so I can kind of clean up that folder structure, put a shortcut, direct it back to the first job number, all right? Recent example of this is the San Mateo job, San Mateo substation, right? We actually had 5 different job numbers for that. We actually had 2 within the survey department. And then we had a civil, a power, and a substation. And you can start to see we need to be unified as a company and within those disciplines, right? That's why we get a lot of our work is because it's all under one roof. The files should be the same. There shouldn't be much coordination that needs to happen between our groups. So let's kind of try to simplify that, bring everything back. One project site, one data folder, all right? So again, a little bit reminder, two things. SD image, right, which we just talked about. Make sure you're using that template. It makes a big difference in terms of the way those images get scaled and inserted. Next comment is no working folder or files, right? This is a practice that, again, it's kind of embedded in our culture of having a working folder and a working file. Be sure to just continue that practice. This is one of Doug's pet peeves, actually. Every file, do I need to silence yourself? Every file on our server is a working file, right? It's always a work in progress until it's what? Submitted? Not even submitted, because then we go into as-builts, right? So these things have life cycles. They're constantly being edited. So the last thing we want is to create another copy, throw it in a working folder, and then it typically gets left there, right? It never actually gets incorporated back into our appropriate base files, or it's just some copy of a file that goes undocumented and nobody knows why it's a working file. Is it current work? Is it past work? So that's a practice that we kind of need to rid ourselves of. I know habits are hard to break. Yeah, Mike?
I encounter working files every single day. Should we take it upon ourselves to take working out of the file?
Yes. Yes, try to talk to whoever last used that file and try to figure out why it's working. So like if I go into a job and I see an EXMA and then I also see an EXMA working, which one am I supposed to reference into my project? Which is the current file? And it's not necessarily the one that was saved last, because somebody could have opened it up not knowing what the difference between the two were, made a little tweak, and now suddenly we've got divergent workflows going on. So this is a really big deal. I can't really stress it enough that we can no longer use that working terminology. Mark?
So could you explain how to properly archive a file?
Yes. So a proper way of archiving a file. Who has a good example of their job? No one? All right, I'll go to 61FU.
That's a mixed paper.
This isn't bad, right? All right, so CAD, power, and then there's an archive folder, right? Inside here, you should create a folder with the date and a brief description, right? All right, so on August 3rd, we made an archive, but why? Why did we archive it? Was it because this is our 30% submittal? Because that would be a great time to archive your files. Create an e-transmit. That'd be great. Again, why are these archived? Put a little description there. That's going to be beneficial to everybody to know why did you archive it, right? What's so important about that timestamp? So put a little thing in there, a little description of, hey, before moving vaults, hey, before rerouting the line, you know, quick little things like that. This is also wonderful to see a new folder and new folder 2. I have no idea. Nobody knows, right? So be sure to follow proper etiquette and just common courtesy to your fellow designers, right? No one person is just working on this job. 20 different people are working on this job, and no one in this room knows what new folder means and what these files mean, let alone the ones with the date. We still don't know what these files really mean, all right?
They all have different dates.
Yes. So 8:30 and 9:12, right? That's the last modified date, but then this was archived on 10:02. So, and put some dashes in there, right? Don't make our eyes bleed. Put a couple dashes, make it easier to just very easily be able to scroll down and see what's going on, all right? And then they'll all be in order too, right? Don't mix the streams like this. So this one was good. Hey, this was using an old sheet set, and then, hey, we created a new sheet set, and then maybe I was making some more changes. So at least I have some idea of what was going on, right? All right, this is an issue that came up last week. Who wants to take a stab at UCS? Your UCS is this little icon here, right? What happens if my UCS does not look like that? And let's say it looks like, not that, because that's just going to rotate my view. Oh, and I should not have done it to this file. That was bad. What happens when your UCS does not have this little square in it? So let me undo that. Oop. What does that mean when it doesn't have that little square? Yeah, there you go. It means that your coordinate system is not set to world, right? So let's say your UCS looks like that. Oh, let's make it so that you can't really tell that I defined my UCS. Let me rotate my plan so that the UCS still appears as an XY Cartesian plane, right? All right. So here it is. What happens now if I start drawing line work or trying to XREF other plans, other files? What's going to happen to those XREFs? Yeah, they're going to fly out in space, right? So one of the things that we actually saw was the UCS was actually set not like this or not to world, but it actually had a 3D tilt to it. So everything that had been drawn in that drawing was no longer 2D line work. It was actually rotated in an XYZ plane, meaning none of that line work that got drawn was now accurate, right? Or true to scale. So the UCS is a very important variable that a lot of times we take for granted and overlook. Really, there's no reason to change your UCS.
Yeah, I was going to say, what would be the reason to do it?
I don't know. If you can come up with one, I'd love to hear it.
Looks better to you, that's all.
Hey, I mean, yeah, you can always rotate your plan view, right?
Yeah.
And that's independent of your UCS. So that was a really bad habit that I had for about 10 years, is that I would constantly draw a line, change my UCS to that line, and then rotate my plan to current so that your stuff changes to that current UCS view, right? But then what happens, you forget to change your UCS back to world. You start XREFing things, and then they come out in space, right? So you don't have to do that because we have a LISP routine called DDV, right? That rotates your view however you want. So really there's no reason to play with your UCS. Leave it on world, all right? You can get into a lot of troubles when you start manipulating your UCS. Sending files outside of NV5. So we looked at this. I sent an email out, I don't remember how long ago, but it basically provided another section of the NV5 CAD manual about section C, sending files, right? So a lot of our files have a lot of proprietary intellectual property right? That gives us a competitive edge in the industry, and it makes your life easier as drafters and designers, right? The last thing I want and the last thing that you want is to lose our competitive edge as a company. So we need to protect our data, right? And there's certain ways to do that. So I've come up with some LISP routines to kind of help automate all that stuff, right? So this is a prime example of, we've got some proprietary blocks in here, right? We don't really want our competitors to be able to gain access to these blocks, right? Because this makes your life easier of, oh, it's just text. Oh, I want that DBL back in. All you got to do is click and it's back in, right? We don't want Compos getting this. We don't want all of our other competitors getting this. So there's a LISP routine that you can load. AP is for app load, which means you're loading a LISP routine. And this one is called, if I remember, transmit file cleanup. All right. So that's the name of the LISP routine. Again, you're never going to run this on your file, right? What's the procedure anytime you send a file outside of NV5? Copy it. Copy it to the deliverable folder, right? Deliverable, a folder with the company name that you're sending it to, and then a folder with the date and a brief description of, hey, 30% submittal, or, you know, review by SDG&E, whatever it is. So you never want to run this on your file. You want to run this on the one that you're delivering, a copy of it. So I'm going to load this transmit file cleanup. And any list routine that I write here in your command line, it's going to say, hey, type file cleanup to run the Lisp. All right, so I'm going to type file cleanup.
So all those steps from your email are now one list routine?
They are one list routine, but there's certain things that you have to do. So right now it's saying select blocks to burst. I'm going to type all and then hit enter again. And then it's going to go through, think a little bit. It's actually exploding all those blocks, but it's not really exploding them, right? Because if we explode it, it's still going to have intelligence to it. So there's actually, if you look at that document, I outline exactly which list routine does. The list routine that I wrote actually combines like 3 or 4 different list routines. So what this actually does is it explodes everything to basic line and text, meaning we're keeping everything in-house, right? So this is no longer a dynamic block. It's no longer a block. It's just basic line work and text, right? Which is what we want to send out of this building. Yeah, we can give them line and text. That's what we want, right? We don't want to give away any of our blocks. And we definitely don't want to give away any of our dynamic blocks, right? So protect NV5's property rights. Protect your jobs. The more projects we get, the better we all are as a company.
Jared, question.
Yeah, Rick.
When you burst that block, does that I saw that white outline? Does that mean it went to 0, right?
So this white outline is a wipeout. This was requested by a lot of the groups. What you're actually seeing is the display order got kind of screwed up. So it's always good to send your wipeouts back behind. You'll notice we kind of lost that DBL box outline. So if we send those behind, it comes back. It's on a wipeout layer that's non-plottable, but it wipes out the stuff behind it. All right.
You want to leave any of that information down to 0, 0.
Oh, yeah. So that's also included. That's the first step, actually, before you run the list routine, is to delete this block matrix, right? This block matrix is just my way of telling you guys everything that's available in our template, right? In terms of blocks, right? Obviously, Civil 3D styles, and there's a lot more. But these are all the blocks that are in the template for you guys to use. It's my way of communicating all that information to you. If we don't delete this, and if we don't run our program, we're basically handing it all to our competitors. So yes, read that document. I did email it to everyone, so you should have a copy of it in your email, but it also exists where? On our server. Q, training and learning, NV5 manuals and procedures. All right, so that's section C, sending files. All right, I'm going to close that file.
Jared,
Yes, sir.
how do I get to the San Diego folder? To where we have all
For the list routines?
Yeah. Q.
Let me open my template again real quick. So everything has been stored locally on your computer. We're trying to get away from utilizing our network. So hopefully your computer has the latest update and it's pathed to your C drive. This one actually isn't. That's fine. You can use the Q as well. I'd prefer if you used your C. So I'm going to show you on your C drive, all right? On your C drive, everything dealing with AutoCAD is NV5 AutoCAD settings, Civil 3D shared, and then LISP 2013. That's where they all are. And then there's the San Diego folder. Anything that I've done here over the last 4 years, I've kind of put into that San Diego folder and kind of given it some naming so that you can easily find it, right?
When did you do that?
When did I do?
How did you cut our speed drives with your?
So every time, hopefully every time you restart your computer, you get that matrix script running. Okay. So every time that script runs, it's copying network resources over to your C drive, right? So this makes it so that you can also take your computer outside of the office and still have all of our resources and still work. There's a lot of different reasons for doing that. One of the things that we ran into is, I think my computer is a prime example right now, is every once in a while, you guys ever see that red X on your drive? So if you open AutoCAD and one of your drives is disconnected or has that red X, it actually removes the path from AutoCAD. So what happens is, what started happening here, especially with our wonderful network, is those support file search paths disappeared, right? So that Q blah, blah, blah to the LISP was getting removed. And so that's why you guys for a while couldn't use INA and ISC, all that stuff. It's because at one point you opened AutoCAD with that red X on your drive and it removes the support path. So that's some of the reasons why we're continually moving things to your C drive more and more. Now I'm doing everything, almost everything. Not quite everything, but almost everything. So LISP is one of the new ones that got moved to your C drive. All right. And if you're ever in question, you can always go into options, go into file support, and you should be able to see where that path is. So right away here, you know that this computer's seen the latest update, and that's the path to the LISP routines on the C drive. Good question. All right, so there are a couple new LISP routines. I'm not really going to cover them too much, just kind of mention them. I'm not going to demonstrate them. There's a LISP routine for GIS data where you can select by object data. So you can start utilizing your GIS information to then put those entities on special layers, and then you can utilize them in AutoCAD like you normally would, right? By layers, not by attribute data. And then obviously there's some LISP routines, a part of that transmit file cleanup that I wrote independently. There's one for block dynamic strip. So it actually takes that dynamic block and explodes it so that it loses its dynamic properties but still remains as a block. And then there was another one that I created that was basically block burst, but to kind of piggyback on that dynamic strip so that it will actually burst all your attributes into lines and text, basically. All right. All right, so a couple things, a couple gift cards to give out for outstanding AutoCAD contributions. And I've got little swag bags here from Autodesk University as well. So the gift cards will come in a week. Carmen was out. So first one goes to Gary Cooper.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
So what did he do? Good question. He discovered an error with the project that previous 10 designers didn't notice. And he caught it at almost a 60% submittal. And this would have been rather embarrassing if these plans had left our building in a construction phase and we hadn't discovered this. So what did he discover? He discovered a bust in the aerial topography provided by the aerial consultant. The bust was about 2 feet vertically over about a mile length of the project. So what you see before you is just that. All this is the project here. And everything in this white cloud is the area that is busted by about 2 feet vertically. What I did real quick was I took our survey shots, all of our potholes, created a surface, ran a volume surface to compare the two, the aerial list versus our survey, and started coming up with all these color schemes. If I hover my cursor over here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but 1.84 feet difference between the two surfaces. All right. So we had plenty of opportunity to catch this, and it really should have been caught prior to the 60% submittal stage. What are ways that we could have caught this earlier?
How did you catch it?
The easiest way is to turn your drawing sideways and like this.
Sometimes
The 3D view or whatever.
Well, you took our survey shots and looked at it.
I did, yeah.
Because you would see
So
the
I
survey
did.
shots hovering like on the ground.
That's a very good way of doing it. So a couple things is you don't even have to use 3D to see the difference, right? Your topography file that the aerialist gives you contains what? Spot elevations, right? And part of those spot elevations is this big, bold, ugly text, right? So right away, if I'm halfway looking at this project, I see this call out here, and I see our survey shots on either side of it, and our survey shots are over 2 feet lower, right? So really, you don't need any civil 3D knowledge. You don't need to do a 3D orbit. You don't need to do any civil 3D functionality. Just seeing what's on your screen could have alerted us of, hey, we've got major issues somewhere in our design. Fortunately, it wasn't our fault. It was actually the aerialist's fault. So we don't have to eat all that time. But this could have been caught way sooner, right? 60% after profiling our electrical trench, after doing all of our pothole utilities and profile. This could have been caught and should have been caught a lot sooner.
Are we getting surfaces from photogrammetrists that are not going through survey?
No, you guys probably actually created this.
So I'm like,
This was probably, I don't know, but I would assume this Surface 10 was created by the survey department.
when
So-
QAQC'd it, we should have found it.
Okay, well, that's a good question. How'd you guys screw up by 2 feet? Yeah, Lucas.
Or comment, that's why you should just use the UAV.
I got nothing to say. I agree, right? Make your price competitive and then we'll talk, right? So there's a couple different ways that we should have caught this. The first one should have been when we created this Surface 10, right? Anytime we create a Surface 10, we should do a reality check of survey shots, right? Because at this point, what kind of survey information did we have? Let's say we didn't have all this pothole data. The only thing we had on the job, let's say, was our survey control, our aerial targets, right? First thing you should do is make sure your surface hits all those aerial targets, right? So that would have been the very first thing we could have done. Second thing is, obviously, when we receive these pothole points, just visually look and go, wow, I'm not hitting that spot elevation by 2 feet. Something's amiss, either with my survey data or the aerialist data. The third thing that I want to talk about is when we go to our profile, right? All these existing utilities get put into our profile. I talked about this a little bit in our power design meeting, but something that I wanted to share with the masses is if you start putting data in your profile, let's say it's a water service, how many feet of cover do you expect on that water service?
At least 3 to 4.
3 feet, right?
At least, yeah.
Let's say 30 to 36 or 30 to 42 inches, right? So when we start projecting these pipe networks to the profile and we start seeing water services with 6 and 7 feet of cover, that should have been another red flag, right? Where we start noticing all of our utilities having an extra 2 feet of cover, that should raise a red flag. Something that I like to do and should really be part of our workflow here is in your profile, do a linear dimension between your top of pipe and your surface, your profile surface, right? So you know there's a style in your template for profile at ×4. So it takes the exaggeration into account and gives you the dimension in real dimensions. So you should really have that dimension on every pipe network in your profile. I highly recommend it. You can then check that against the pothole report, right? And make sure that that dimension matches what AirX is telling us of 36.5 inches of cover, right? That's a quick, easy check. The next thing that often gets overlooked, project your pothole points to your profile, right? How nice is that? That's something that I will have a separate training for, is just projection of points to a profile. But you can basically take your pothole point group and project those points to your profile so that you see every single pothole point in your profile. Then you would see right away that our survey data isn't hitting that profiled surface. All those points would show 2 feet below the surface, right? So there's a couple different reasons why we want to do that. First is just to verify all of our data is correct. The second is when we go and label all these pipes, right? We're picking a label style that says, hey, is this assumed? calculated or potholed, right? If you project your pothole points to your profile, you know right away that this is a potholed utility and what style of label to use. All right, so good job, Gary Cooper. Gold star.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing. This came up a couple times over the last couple months, so I wanted to review it real quick. On your pipe networks, let's say we're creating encasement, right? Electrical encasement. So I'm going to come in here and edit my pipe network, right? That's how we create pipes. And I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to do electrical package. And the only one available is a 12 by 12, right? Okay, yeah. Sometimes we don't have the real dimensions, but sometimes we do, right? Sometimes we get the pothole at the top and the bottom, and we need to represent that. Especially, let's say, if it's a 36-inch high package, right? We need to model that correctly. So how do we go about doing that? So you actually need to edit your parts list. So in your tool space, under your settings tab, you'll go to pipe network, expand your parts list. Nope. Make sure you're doing it in the right file. And so this one is the EXEC, existing electrical. So right click edit. It'll bring up this, make sure you're on the pipes tab. And then here's your electrical package custom sizes, right? So we can expand this and we can see there's just a 12 by 12, right? So this is where obviously I could populate every single combination of pipes encasement, right? But that would be impractical, right? It'd be hundreds upon hundreds of possibilities. So it's really up to you guys to add these as you find them in your project. It's rather easy. You just right click on your electrical package custom size catalog, add part size. And these are the two parameters that you add. So the width, typically we don't really know that. So I started at 12 inches and you have 6-inch increments. Don't get caught up on the width of it. The really important thing is the depth, right? So yes, try to get the width right, but a lot of times you're not going to know the width. The important part is the inner pipe height. So these start at 8 inches and go incrementally at 1 inch all the way up to a 90-inch depth or high pipe or encasement in this case, all right? So let's say we'll do a 24-inch. We'll hit OK. There's one other thing that you need to do after adding it, and that's to assign a style and rules to that newly added part, all right? If you add multiple, you don't have to do it to each one. The trick is this little save icon button. Why it's a little disk, I don't know. But this will apply it to everything in this family. So I'm going to do that. So electrical, I'll change it to pothole just for fun, and you'll see both of them update. Same thing with the cover. Typically just follow what's there. Cover 3 feet, cover 3 feet. All right. Then you hit OK. And then suddenly, sometimes you have to close this because it needs to reread it, right? So we'll go back to Prospector, edit my pipe network, and now I've got the 12 by 24. Okay. So for all your encasements, that's going to be critical. You guys need to go through those steps to add those custom part sizes to your drawing file. Next question, participation. What goes in your PRUG file? All right, so we got alignments. What else?
Profiles.
Profiles. What's that?
Structure bed.
Pads. Anybody disagree with any of that stuff being said? Profiles? PRPF, profile.
Okay, yeah.
How about trick question? There should not be a PRUG file on our network, right? What does PRUG stand for?
I thought it meant proposal underground.
All right, so if it's underground, what is that? Is it your alignment? Is it your profile? Don't we have separate files for that information? All right, so part of this is a little bit on my fault. I'll man up and take ownership of it. So I've corrected that error, right? So previously we had a couple different template files. We had a PRTL, right? And what was supposed to be in that PRTL? The alignment. All right, good. So instead of being PRTL, that file now is PRPN, right? Every other group inside NV5, it's the PRPN, right? Proposed planimetrics, all right? So all the planimetrics means is your proposed line work, all right? So this is where you're going to draw your trench. This is where your vaults are going to be. It's where your alignment's going to be, all right? So PRTL no longer exists as a template. Go to File, New. You're now going to see PRPN, ECUG. All right. I called it ECUG just to distinguish it from the regular PRPN that has all the curves and all the stuff that you don't care about in the electrical group, right? So PRPN, ECUG. All right. In your project, you can just call it PRPN. You don't necessarily need to distinguish ECUG. But that is your PRPN file where you're drawing your alignment, your trench layers, and your vault structures, all right? The other file that you're used to seeing, SD_SDG&E underground transmission, right? That seem familiar? Like this file, except without the sheets, right? That's where your profile would be, right? So to simplify that, you now have PRPF distribution and PRPF transmission. All right. So hopefully there's less ambiguity about our file naming convention and what file to use. Simply use the template and name it the exact same thing, right? So no longer no PRUG. You have a PRPN and you have a PRPF, right? PRPN is your planimetrics, your line work, and your alignment, your PRPF. So everything gets data shortcutted in, and that's where you have your profile. Make sense? Does that clarify things up a little bit, I hope? All right. You still have your plan sheets. They're still down in the old naming fashion. I don't think I'm going to change that, but I may. I'm fickle. All right. So hang with me. We've got still quite a bit to cover, but I'll wrap it up here shortly. Some things to keep aware of. There's another new template. We keep expanding our service offerings, which means we need new AutoCAD templates and new tool palettes to support all these workflows. So the first workflow that's kind of new is called DIMP work for the gas group. So if you're in the gas group and you're working on DIMP projects, you now have a template and blocks to help you with that workflow. You also have a tool palette specifically designed for that. So you'll have an NV5 gas DIMP tool palette as well. All right. So you'll have existing fittings, our annotation blocks, some simple parts, and then proposed fittings as well. All right. So that's all in the template and a tool palette to support that workflow. All right. The next gift card goes to Edgar. What? Yeah, exactly. So, so he gets credit for this. He gave a lot of valuable input on our gas design, alignment, and profile labels. So he brought up to my attention that, hey, we really need different labels for an as-built completion set as opposed to design. So now inside this template, we have that developed thanks to his input. So if I go in here and look at alignment, label styles, station, profile geometry point, we have labels for as-built and design circumstances, the difference being how we treat the pipeline stationing, right? So in your as-built, you just have your PS, no HS. And then your design, I believe you have both, your HS and your PS. So kind of labels to support that. So that goes with your alignment profile geometry points as well as your profile horizontal geometry points. So both of those have been developed due to his input, and that should speed up a lot of your drafting for those plans. This next one, you guys should be pretty excited about. Let's see here, which file? This one here. This is something that will be implemented in the next day or two. But so this is our PRPF. The first thing I'm going to do, well, not the first thing, but in this case, I'm going to bring in some pipe networks, right? So there's only the PREC. I'm going to bring in my electrical, and I'm going to bring in my gas. I'm going to bring in the gas. All right, so then the next thing I'm interested in is creating a profile view to kind of see what those pipe networks look like. Previously, what did it kind of look like when you brought in pipe networks? Just a bunch of green circles, right? And it was pretty difficult to distinguish what network it was or what utility it was, right? So we've made some modifications. So if I zoom in here, you can start to see each network will have a separate color, all right? So your red is going to be electrical, and it's actually going to come on its own layer as well. So pipe network profile, electrical, and then same with gas. Gas is going to be yellow and come on its own layer as well. So this will help you guys distinguish between what utilities you're seeing. It'll kind of help you judge depths, right? Because, all right, this is electrical. I expect there to be how much cover on an electrical line? About 30 inches, 36 inches. So does this look reasonable? All right, how about my gas? How many inches or feet of cover? 4 or 5, right? So does this look reasonable?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, right? So hopefully it helps you guys identify your utilities a little bit more easily, makes your design a little bit easier to understand and for you to get a full grasp of what you're seeing on your screen. All right, so that's something that currently not in the template, but will probably be there by the end of the day. So just kind of not quite formulated correctly in the template, but obviously I did it on this file real quick. All right, so expect to see that. It'll kind of follow the same colors as our EXUT, right? In terms of telco is a purple line, sewer is magenta, storm drain is, the green color. Yeah, Rick?
Is there a way that we can get, once this is all labeled, we do pretty much a blanket of labeling of everything and then we kind of move around to get the top of pipe or top of utility to the surface elevation, maybe like a depth points layer. That way it's easier to identify with the depth stock. That way we avoid the whole previous issue.
What I'm suggesting you do is just do that.
Is that what?
Just automatically.
Automatically?
When you label, when you annotate, you do complete network.
And that dimension is reduced to 0.4, isn't it now?
I don't know. I created just a random dimension. So this is on a 2 exaggeration. Obviously, mine is 4.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, obviously before you create your dimensions, you set your dimension style to current.
Yeah.
Um,
Or another annotation style, maybe just for that.
I don't think there's an automated way to do it. I'll look into that, but I'm very doubtful that there's a way to get that to work. The way I currently do it is just a linear dimension, and just don't be super picky, but something close.
You can get the depth in the annotate on the profile annotation.
You can, but you still have to pick the 2 points. It just creates a label.
And you do the same thing.
Yeah, you could do an annotation. This may be a little bit better in terms of if things move. The dimensions are a lot easier to manipulate. Either way, you should have some sort of annotation here. Whether you use a dimension or annotation, you should be able to see quickly the cover on all your existing utilities. So this was some direction that we gained from SDG&E late last week. They're changing their system, right? DPSS versus SAP. So they have a new title block to support all the SAP work. So inside the Building 2 template, you'll see two layout tabs. One for the old kind of title block for DPSS, and then you'll see a new one for SAP. So if make sure you know which one to use for your project. Most new work is going to be the SAP one, and this is for Building 2. So first thing you would do is if you're doing Building 2 or applicant design, you'd come in here, delete the DPSS one, and use the SAP one. It's a little different. You have a project notification number, job notification number. That's really the big difference. Some of this looks a little different. Previously, the revision was in the corner. Now it's up here a little bit. They're using fields for the date and time. So just a couple tweaks. The drawing name goes up here instead of down here. So just a couple tweaks that they made to their system that they are requesting that we incorporate onto all of our submittals. So that's in the templates now. So be sure to use that new title block.
There's a new one coming out for Building 5 soon.
Yes, there is. All right, last thing I'll cover is just a lot of block updates that have occurred. First group being for distribution design and firm. You know, we looked at all of our annotation last time. Let me just kind of clean this up a little bit for you guys to see. So previously, we added these two grips, right? So you can toggle the text separate from the DBL and switch between the two. The one thing that is now being incorporated is if I remove the DBL and just text only, you'll notice that the text actually moves down to where the leader starts as well. Before it was kind of floating up here and that leader would be, you know, in the second line of text. So now your first line of text moves down to where that leader starts. So that is per the wish list of Johnny Vigil. So he gets a $50 Amazon gift card for his contribution for just saying, hey, Jared, can we get that to move down and adjust accordingly? So that looks like a normal leader would. We also cleaned up on the text mask and wipeout. This is something that we noticed. If previously, if you did text only, the wipeout didn't go away. It remained there. So now that wipeout or text mask goes away when you do text only and reappears when you bring back the DBL box. We then followed the same principle. Johnny asked for, hey, well, what about all of our one-line drawings? Can we do the same thing? I said, sure. So now all of your one-line annotation has the same things available. You can toggle the DBL on and off. And when you change the lines, obviously that's not too special there. Those don't move. We do have a left and right versions applied to that because of the DBL and just the way it all works. So be sure you guys realize that. And then the next quick couple things here. Trench details, right? Everybody's favorite topic. Who here in the last month has received a red line comment from Mr. Webb? Since he's no longer here, I can talk about him, right? Yeah. To add a T-cut to your asphalt. Anybody receive that? I know some people have. So previously what this kind of looked like, do you guys know what I mean when I say T-cut on your asphalt rehabilitation? This is the way that we are currently showing these sections, right? Just wherever our trench is, that's where our asphalt repair is. This is proposed, everything else is existing, right? If you actually look at the City of San Diego standards, that is not what the trench rehabilitation looks like, right? It projects out.
Yeah.
So congratulations, these blocks now accommodate that. You'll notice 2 additional grips at your top. So just grip that and snap it to that point. and now you have a T-cut for your asphalt repair. All right, so make sure you guys are showing that correctly on our plans. Mark is going to be redlining plans like crazy about that, and yeah, previously it was a pain to kind of do that. So just grip back and forth to toggle it on and off. So that's really important to let the contractor know exactly what's expected of him, and so that it gets built appropriately. Asphalt rehab is your biggest impact on the people using the roads that we're doing construction in. And that's where the city receives the most complaints, is the conditioning of pavement after a project. And so this little detail is going to be scrutinized more and more. So we need to make sure we're reflecting it accurately on our plans. The other thing I will mention here, I won't mention, because we start getting into transmission. So somebody missed a big opportunity to get a gift card. We do not really have trench details for transmission. So I am in the process of developing that. So all these sections that you see here, or details as we call them, are being populated for transmission. Those will be available in the next update, in the next Lunch and Learn. But you'll have all kinds of trench details, as well as grounding details, pole details, all those typical project, those blocks that you typically run into on your transmission design for 230 kV. So we had them for 69 and 138 kV for transmission, but we didn't have anything really for 230. So all those blocks are being developed right now. All right, any questions, concerns? I know we covered a whole lot today. Thank you for staying somewhat connected and awake. I know this was a lot, so appreciate it. There'll be a recording. If you have any questions or if you have any comments that you'd like to address, I'm here. If I could get a couple people to stick around and kind of help rearrange the chairs, I would greatly appreciate it. Just maybe 1 or 2 people. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's the one thing arranged.